How's it going, guys? So I'm here to take a look at the third episode of the Ruthless Aggression documentary series. It was the Evolution episode, and this episode, let me tell you something. It really showed that Triple H is really a prick. Like, this guy, first of all, he's completely changed, but you really got a sense of like who this guy is and just how big his ego is. And look, Triple H is good. Triple H is a star. He's a good promo guy. But you can really tell that like Triple H really believes that he's worth more. Like, okay, he's definitely like in the top 20, I would say. Perhaps maybe for WWE superstars. I don't know. I have to do the list one time. It would be very hard for me to pinpoint certain people on there and where I'd place them on the list. So I guess we could do a loosely based one. I know certain people have asked me throughout the years, but I've really struggled with that list. I think I should just, put one out there, and kind of make it my unofficial list, but just talk about guys that I really like. Triple H is not as good as The Rock. He's not as good as Stone Cold. He's not as good as Shawn Michaels. He's not as good as Hulk Hogan. He's not as good as the Macho Man. I don't know. Like, I gotta really think where I would place him. But this guy, without a doubt, in his mind, he believes that he's the best. He's repeatedly probably been told he's the best by many different people. But you really could see like all the things that like Vince Russo did for this guy, and stabbed him in the back, stopped him from coming back in the company in 2002. So Triple H, also the way that this guy like dumped China and everything, not a great guy. But depending on who you ask in this business, you check out shoot promos and stuff, you got a lot of people praising Triple H. I'm sure everyone in NXT just loves Triple H. They would give Triple H a big old kiss on the lips if they could. I'm sure Kevin Owens loves Triple H. I'm sure Johnny Gargano loves Triple H. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the Evolution episode here. So we talk about, first they start talking about how Ric Flair was in the company and Ric Flair didn't have any direction. And once again, it's kind of like making excuses. I didn't really think that Ric Flair was being used that poorly. Like they had to kind of be careful how they booked this guy, because he wasn't exactly a spring chicken even then. So, but he was still willing to do a lot. But Ric Flair was involved in a lot of enjoyable segments. But a lot of things around this time were not really being completed. And a lot of things were like stopping due to a lot of unforeseen circumstances and a lot of poor handling. But it really shows that like 2002 was a good year. Even with all the BS and the stop-start stuff. And, they pretty much destroyed the NWO. Like, there was a perfect opportunity where they were basically given a faction that was already written for them. All they had to do was implement them into the WWE. And they had the resources probably to do it even better. I think that this would have gone a lot differently, had this occurred during the Attitude Era and we had Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo at the helm. I'm just saying, a lot of people are probably going to say what they always do, I'm a Russo mark, but it speaks for itself. I'm just saying, look how everything went smoothly. There were so many conclusions to storylines. Like in 2002, there was things that were all over the place. You had guys switching shows like crazy. The moment they started the brand split, they couldn't even think like what to do with Chris Jericho, for example. Like the very first pay-per-view that they had, he wasn't even on it. He did a run-in, but they didn't even give the guy a match. So you could tell like they really did not know what they were doing when they went into it. So of course, You know, they like to say that Ric Flair just, you know, he couldn't find his place on the roster. So once again, it was Triple H to the rescue, because Triple H always saves the day. Yep. Nope. You know, Triple H is the cause of everything that's great. And, you know, if you ask certain fans, they'll tell you that if Triple H was running things on the main roster, then WWE would be just fine, right? Because NXT is just fine. You know, it's like the dog in the meme sitting in the fiery apartment. This is fine, right? Absolutely. So Triple H could do no wrong. He swoops in, he pitches a faction to Vince. And I've heard this before about how Vince McMahon is not crazy about factions, but he green lights it because, hey, it's his son-in-law, right? Whatever reason he gives, he said it was promising, you know, it was going to be like the second coming of the Four Horsemen. I'm not sure, he didn't really say that's how he pitched it, but, you know, he had a faction that was going to revitalize Ric Flair's career. They talk about Randy Orton and how this guy came in all promising. You know, I would say Randy Orton, like, just looking at this guy with the shaggy haircut versus, like, you know, when they gave him just not like a major overhaul, like, haircut, but they, like, tightened him up a little bit with his appearance. It was like night and day. It was amazing. And he instantly, you know, he looked like a star even when he first started, but there was something very, like, boyish about him. The minute, like, they gave him that shorter haircut, it just all of a sudden, I don't know what it was like a transformation. The guy just, he looked like the freaking man. Like, okay, so I would say that they really knew what they were doing back then when it came to that, and like who looked like a star and who didn't. They have no idea how to do that now, differentiate, you know, with appearances and everything. And probably because, you know, we all got to do 50-50. Everyone's got an equal opportunity, guys, right? Look how far that's gotten them. I had forgotten how Randy started to build that heel heat. Like when he started doing those RN updates, like the Randy Orton News, it made with the CNN logo. That stuff where he kind of tried to make like a genuine update on his shoulder injury. And like people were booing him, and he did it just to keep being annoying. I don't know, they said at first like it was supposed to be a genuine update, but I think that their memory is kind of cloudy on that one, because I'm pretty sure if you look at like the logo and everything, there's no way that that could be a babyface thing. Like that had to have been a heel thing. And it's not just me looking at that in retrospect, but like I said, there's a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of rewriting history. I think a lot of people with really bad memories telling these stories. It seems like every single time they tell a story in WWE, it changes from documentary to documentary. It really does. Depending on what point in time, the story could go this way or it could go that way, depending on how someone feels. And like, that shouldn't be how it is, because a story could only really go one way. It's kind of like, I can't really put my finger on it, but there was an old Japanese samurai film where they told the same story from different perspectives. They've had a lot of different movies like that, but like different perspectives on the same story, and they're all different. Sometimes with a different outcome even, because they're going by like how that character saw it. And I gotta say, that's exactly how it is in WWE. There's different stories, you know, a different spin put on each story depending on who you talk to. And it's like, it's kind of sickening really watching it. Because a lot of people are biased, a lot of people are kissing up to WWE. They talk about Batista also, how he was doing the Deacon Batista thing. And that was humorous for a time. But once again, like, I don't know. I felt like Reverend Devon could have gotten over. But once again, it's like, they always say, like, it failed. And I always get the idea that, like, that they're blaming the wrestler in this. Because at no point do they ever say, do they take responsibility for them effing up and just not being able to write these storylines efficiently. And Brian Gerwitz is there. And the thing is, this guy, he's written some good stuff. I will give him that. Definitely better than the goofballs nowadays. That goes without question. But he's like sitting there not taking any responsibility for a lot of these storylines failing. He's kind of just sitting there saying, all right, so maybe it wasn't his fault. He was the head writer, but there were other people involved, so maybe he doesn't get the blame at all. When he's sitting there, I don't really dislike him. Like some of the other guys, when they're sitting there and talking, I don't get an untrustworthy feeling, but it's kind of like, Brian, I think he kind of doesn't care. He just kind of wrote a bunch of stuff, threw stuff at the wall and saw what stuck. But I think it was a lot less tactful than the way Vince Russo or Ed Ferrara used to do it. I don't think they really sat down with a lot of these people and really analyzed who they were, and what type of characters best suit them. I think a lot of times it was more just, more randomized with the characters, and sometimes they would talk to them, but I don't think on the same level as during the Attitude Era. Because you saw that, they had a lot of good characters, but during the Ruthless Aggression Era, they went through a lot of different characters, with not a lot of them sticking, and giving up on a lot of people way too fast. Maybe not as fast as nowadays when they give up on people, but again, it was let's accept no responsibility. So they started getting Batista and Randy Orton in there, and then they talk about forming this Evolution group. And then they have a match with Booker T and Scott Steiner, and Triple H is making he's the one in charge, he's giving them all this advice and everything. And then he talks about them really messing up. And he doesn't say in the documentary what he's really angry about. What did they do? Did they wrestle a bad match? Did they no sell? I don't know. He says that he has a talk. He talks about them they gotta get their they have to get their priorities straight. If it ever happens again, that he's gonna kick them out of the group and it's gonna be over. But what did they do? He doesn't even say what it is. And if we're being so harsh on people's performances, then he should, Triple H in the spot that he's in. I know he had a small demotion recently, but 75% of the time, 90% of the time, this guy should be chewing out talent. If he got mad at a rookie Orton and Batista, who actually look good in the ring most of the time, why is he not chewing out all these other guys for no selling? Seth Rollins, did he get chewed out for injuring Sting? How about Sasha Banks? Did she get chewed out for ending Paige's career? Come on. And Rollins, I'm saying, injured Sting. He ended his career as well. Did any of these career-ending goofballs? How come Bret Hart is able to see this? How is he giving this a fair, and balanced take? And an accurate take at that. How are you not going to punish or reprimand the guy for injuring someone? Forget about it being the caliber of Sting. Forget about, injuring anybody. Accepting no responsibility, no apology or anything like that. It's just and I think there was an apology, but it was it might have, it shouldn't have even existed the way the apology was given, because it was yeah, sorry. And moving on. They moved past that incident way too fast. So where is this Triple H? The Triple H who expects good work rate and expects, wrestlers to act accordingly. Apparently he threw that all out the window. Doesn't he sit there and be man, I used to be hardcore. What happened to me? I don't know, but I also get this sense that he takes it way too seriously. So then they have and I'm going to explain in a minute what I mean about that, where this guy tries to act like he's way more than what he is. They talk about a match with the Dudleys. I kind of remember this, where everything went wrong in this match. This was when the dirt sheets were, just starting to make the rounds on the internet and get really popular, and I started to read them. The Dudleys, got into this match. Batista ended up tearing his tricep. Orton's foot got caught behind Bubba Ray or Devon doing a flapjack, and like there was a lot of heat. This is what really annoys me. Like Bubba Ray's like trying to pull this. Oh, I don't really remember what happened. Like what? Like why is it when there's a good story to be told? Like if there was a lot of heat, I think he would have remembered. But like there's just a lot of tiptoeing around. And it's like, come on, just tell us what happened here. You got pissed off. You had some fight backstage. Like, if you're going to put this documentary and give us an inside scoop, then give us an inside scoop. Stop pulling your punches. Just say, Batista, he does end up finally saying it. But you can see, like, Bubba has a really hard time getting it out. Like, he really doesn't want to say what really happened. But then he finally says that, Batista was kind of... I think he was, trying to like, it wasn't the work anymore. It was kind of a shoot, and he was kind of pie-facing Bubba. He does it back to him. I don't know. He didn't really explain it that well. That's what I'm saying. It's like when these wrestlers tell these stories, it's like they're holding back. They don't want to say, but then they kind of do end up saying it because it sounds ridiculous at how they're trying to hold back what they're saying. So finally they have to like wait until Batista gets back. Orton comes back first. Batista tries to get back, and try to return to the ring even quicker so he could be there right alongside Orton with the return. But he ends up re-tearing his tricep. So now they start looking at Mark Jindrak. And now let me tell you something about Jindrak. When this guy was in WCW with Sean O'Haire, this was an exciting team. I don't know when these guys came to WWE, they like sent them to OVW. I was like, are you mad? These guys were amazing. And for some reason they were like, oh no, we got to ship you down there. We got to teach you how to work. Like what? Like, it wasn't like these guys were dangerous or anything, or like they were from ECW and they like couldn't adjust to the style. You watch the matches in WCW and the WWE style is very much with WCW. Like, I could see with ECW, those guys would have a tougher time. They're used to working with less restrictions. They weren't really concerned for one another's safety in ECW. Here, with WCW, it was pretty much the same thing as WWE, at least from what I saw, but I'm not a worker, so... Anyway, so with that in mind, Mark Jindrak was being considered for the group, and, like, Triple H talks about how he didn't like Jindrak. So, right away this guy admits that he has his favorites. And we know that that's pretty much the story today. Not much has changed, really. He has his favorites. He said that he was getting pissed off. Randy Orton really wanted him to be in the group, but he was goofing around with Orton and making like animal noises in the back of the car that they were driving in. And Triple H says he's not taking it seriously. Like, taking it seriously, like, we're talking about a guy that like goofed around in D-Generation X and everything. All of a sudden he's Mr. Serious. Like, he wants to show a personality. And instead, they see this guy's got a larger-than-life, fun-loving personality. So instead of trying to find a character for him and try to write him into the show, especially because he's not some small vanilla midget, he's actually a big, imposing dude. Like, Jindrak is like 6'6", almost, what was he, like 280 or something like that. They talk about his impressive vertical leap. So not only was this guy capable of doing big-time high spots like a cruiserweight, not only did he have the size, the physique, and he also apparently had the personality, which they never let him show on TV. This guy was a complete package. But, they let him go at like half speed. They threw him in a tag with Lance Cade, another guy where, it was pretty apparent that there was more to him than was meeting the eye. But what did they do? They threw him in a tag team with that slob Trevor Murdoch, where, like, no one was going to take this guy seriously. And, we got what we got, basically. And Jindrak, like he said, ended up having a mediocre career. And it was not his fault. It was not his fault at all. And, and Jindrak says he doesn't deserve to be in the group. It's almost like you feel like he was being threatened off screen to say that. Oh, you didn't deserve it. We'll pay you some money to say that. So Jindrak sits there in this interview and basically buries himself. I don't think any self-respecting talent would, like, willingly bury themselves like that and their brand. Like, I would like this guy to just say Triple H is full of himself. He thought that he was like the second coming of Ric Flair or Arn Anderson. He was taking this stuff way too seriously. Oh, you gotta walk around and take it all seriously and everything. Like, this is wrestling. We can't, like, have a little bit of fun. We've got to be uptight at all times. And, like, they skip over a lot of stuff also. So, Batista returns and, all the wrongs are righted. And Evolution proceeds the way that it does throughout history. And I love how they completely gloss over how much Triple H buried Randy Orton. Straight up buried this dude. Like, it was all set. They were going to have a babyface turn for Orton. And then they realized Orton is not a good babyface. Because why? Because he's a prick in real life. So they realized that this wasn't a smart idea. So instead of trying to maybe, I don't know, wait to pull the trigger on the world title run, instead they pulled the trigger on the world title run. They had him go over Benoit at SummerSlam. And then Triple H and everyone else is talking about how Orton had a bad title run. Well, whose idea was it to turn him face in the first place? Whose idea was that? I don't think it was Orton's idea from what he said, because they showed him during that time and he was not comfortable with that role. He wanted to play a heel, but they made him be a babyface. Orton's not going to say no to it. They're giving him the title. So, like, you're 24 years old. They offer you the world title. You're even younger than The Rock at this point. Are you going to turn it down? No, you're not. So, Orton basically, got some bad storyline right there, and before you knew it, they took the title off of him like less than a month later, and here they are blaming Orton. Orton wasn't ready. You're not ready there, pal. Of course, Orton's not going to sit there in the documentary and defend himself too much because he's working for the company, which kind of takes away from his usual, I don't give a crap attitude. But, like, how much do you really expect him to say? He kind of has to know when to pull his punches. So, yeah, it wasn't the right time. I would agree with that because he's in the group. He wasn't ready to turn babyface because he should have never been babyface in the first place because he wasn't comfortable playing that role. But let's blame Orton. Let's blame Orton, because it's all his fault. So, they skip over. Also, I just got finished watching Royal Rumble 2005, which I never actually watched that event the whole way through. And again, Triple H, like, towards the finish, just buries Orton, destroys Orton. So they were, like, not done ever burying this guy. Like, he destroyed him twice. Beat him up, like, the night right after winning the title. It was, it was really messy. And they don't want to seem like they want to address it at all. It's basically like, yeah, it was Orton's fault. And then they move on right to Batista. And, like, see, this is what I'm talking about, like, during the Ruthless Aggression era. They got certain things wrong, they got other things right. So, but with the things that they got wrong, they want to accept no responsibility for them at all. So, like, who's taking the blame for this? It's like they always blame, like, bad storylines on Vince Russo, and he killed WCW, and this and that, and, the few, like, unsuccessful storylines during the Attitude Era, like the Beaver cleavage thing, like, oh, yeah, Russo this, it was, how about all the failed storylines during the Ruthless Aggression era that don't get addressed? There's the guy, Brian Gerwitz, and everyone else. There's Bruce Pritchard, who was there at the time, Where's the responsibility being pegged on them? Oh, no, it was all the wrestler's fault. It was Randy Orton. He goofed up his run because, you know, it doesn't make any sense. They're downright admitting that they turned him babyface. So you have to admit that it's your fault. You did it. You're the one who told him to go do that on the show. It wasn't his fault. And they go ahead and they make like, well, you know, it was all his fault, guys. You know, he wasn't ready. You're the ones who gave him that character. Wrestlers don't automatically go out there and start portraying random characters all of a sudden. You know, they have to be instructed to do so first, right? They have to get the okay. So it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. You know, I gotta say, like, I think so far out of everything that I've seen so far, like, this episode really was very annoying. It was basically Triple H tooting his own horn. Beep, beep. You know, like, seriously, it was the USS Triple H, you know, pulling into the harbor where he was just tooting his own horn. Oh, I made Ric Flair great again. I got Orton and Batista to the top. No, they got themselves over by themselves. There was nothing that Triple H did. You know, having them stand next to him, that wasn't what got them over. It was Orton's cocky attitude. It was Batista's presence. It was the charisma of both those guys. You know, but Triple H is like, hey guys, it was all me. You know, always the attitude. Triple H is the brilliant guy, right? Yeah. He's getting all those guys over in NXT that no one even watches on Wednesday nights. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break already. Triple H is seriously one of the most overrated people. He's good. He's even great. But he's not as good as people say that he is, and he's not as good as he thinks that he is. I mean, it's complete BS already. You know, how much this guy, you know, how highly he thinks of himself and that he could do no wrong, and he thinks he's gotten so many people over, when in truth, in all honesty, those people, they got themselves over. You know, like, okay, see, and also they talk about, they don't talk enough about Evolution, how they, like, kept Goldberg from winning at the right time, a lot of different wrestlers that they held down, you know, a lot of people that they buried along the way, and people that should have gotten opportunities. How about the Booker T at WrestleMania, destroying Booker T? There was, you know, Evolution was pretty annoying at times on TV, where it made SmackDown the superior show. I don't completely despise Evolution because I liked a lot of the players involved, but a lot of things with the booking where it went on for like way too long, and the dominance became, it really like aggravating after a while, seeing these guys. And I know that was the point. They were supposed to be dominant and everything, but it really like hindered the show from being a better show. And, you know, that's just how I see it. You know, I talked a little bit about this a few years ago when they made their return. How I wasn't like super crazy about Evolution. It wasn't like one of the greatest factions ever, like they said. Like, they really try to pump this one up at the end, like this is one of the greatest factions of all time. No, it wasn't one of the greatest factions of all time. It was an okay faction. It was a memorable faction, but like the NWO, DX, they're all better factions. Not one of the best. I would not say that at all. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought. You know, go watch it if you haven't. Come back to the video and let me know what you think. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all notifications when I post all my new videos. Thank you to all my patrons. And guys, I'll see you next time.